Oh my gosh. Hello, how are you guys doing this morning?
Hey, we just got some pancakes and yeah.
Starting off the day right. I
Coffee.
love it. Beautiful, beautiful. I have to apologize about the time, the time difference sometimes. There's different times where I know somebody's from another country and I'm like, oh, hey, maybe we should kind of go over this. But hopefully this wasn't, cracking you out of bed, at the crack of dawn. But I have to say I appreciate you guys taking the time this morning. Thank you so much.
Yeah, no problem. We're happy to be here.
Awesome. So, I have to say, I guess even, before starting everything, what a beautiful thing is to see the both of you as friends, in real life after experiencing this movie. Because god dang, it was a hard watch for sure.
Yeah. It's actually funny that you say that because Sissy Lee, who plays my sister in the movie, on our flight up north where we shot, she said, should we talk to them or, should we be friends with them while we shoot or what do you think? And I was like, oh no, we shouldn't even look at them. And then the minute we get there, it's impossible because everybody was so great. Like, we're like, oh, shit, we're going to have to actually do some acting here because everybody's wonderful.
Yeah, absolutely. And that was kind of the thing too, was, and just looking through everything. I mean, it's one of those stories and it's one of those movies that, really you can't help but feel the absolute like realism of it and the hurt that is involved in this. And so, initially reaching out and I think Stephanie mentioning like, oh, well, we could have Melissa on too. I'm like, that would be amazing. And, quite a juxtaposition as far as for, talking the movie too. So yeah. That's awesome. That's awesome. So before digging into this, both of yourselves having a long career in film and acting and all of the sorts from early on, as far as the early interest of the both of you, television series or a movie that maybe resonated with you earlier on and caught your interest as a early love for film.
We were just talking about that question and laughing at ourselves because of how just innocently juvenile our first interests in films are.
Yeah. And
sure.
And mine, mine wasn't actually a film. It was a theater show that I went to as a kid. I went to see my uncle in a production of Brigadoon, which is it's a musical that takes place in the Scottish moors and there's like a magical mist. And I remember just being completely transported and invested, and I wanted to be the man, I wanted to be the woman, I wanted to be a part of the story. And I remember keeping the playbill and going back and looking through it, and just being I want to be a part of creating stories that make people feel something. That was the first time I remember feeling that. Melissa.
So my mom's actually watching. She'll tell you that my favorite first movie was Land Before Time. And that's a good one. She would know when it was on in the kitchen when she'd start to hear me crying because that's when the mom would die, right? But apart from that, my favorite childhood movie is Bloodsport.
Oh, wow.
Claude
Okay.
Van Damme. And I was telling her, I would love to reenact that scene where he gets the powder in his eye. And I'm here I am, a little 6-year-old girl, thinking I'm going to be an MMA fighter one day. And that was
So, I mean, where did from cartoons and things, where did Bloodsport get introduced to you?
I think it was around my dad. So I know one of your questions coming up, but my dad and I would always go to the video store, the rental store, and those were the kind of movies he liked to watch. So that's what I watched.
Oh, man. Oh, okay.
And
that's
it got
awesome.
to the point where I feel like Bloodsport was playing on TV all the time.
So there was no escaping. This was just a thing where
I don't know, whatever cable channel on the weekend. So that was just let's watch Bloodsport.
Oh my God, I love that. I love it. And so you touching on that, and as well, Stephanie, you touching on your local theater. earlier memories, if we were to close our eyes and just experiences, maybe the sights and sounds and smells of things that you remember from these places local to you, what comes to mind as far as these earlier spots, maybe a theater, movie theater, video rental that were special to you locally?
I remember the smell of the local movie theater, like the smell of popcorn that was like just in everything, and it was like kind of a nasty smell, but like also kind of delicious. You went to...
I was gonna say popcorn too, and the movie store that we went to was Warehouse Video, like rental store. It wasn't even Blockbuster,
Okay.
and right when you walked in, there was always a popcorn machine popping some popcorn, and we were never got it. We got like the cheaper, 50-cent one at a time.
Okay.
I remember that, and I also remember just the smell of the plastic, the vinyl that the videos came in. When you rented from the video store, it was in that plastic, and you had to squeeze the sides.
Yes.
And to get it out, and just the smell of that plastic.
Yeah.
That's what I remember.
I remember the excitement of going into the video store, and like you would have to like look behind each of the video cassettes
to see if it's there.
And, like, you're so lucky to be there. I just realized I pulled out my wallet because I still have
Oh my God.
card.
That is insane.
I'm like, I will keep it forever because it was such a special experience as a kid.
Man, I wish, and it's so funny too, because like there are certain things, related to those, like VHS or earlier, like movie props or items that I may have taken, posters. I don't have any of my membership cards though, and I don't know how I got rid
I
of
was
that
just
shit.
thinking that who would have known that would have been a memorabilia item one day.
Right. It's so wild. I love that. So now as far as and Steffi, you touched on your local theater as far as going to see plays. Was that something that was important to you? And I know this is going to kind of transition into later talking about Soft and Quiet. Was theater something that you experienced early on and continued on as far as maybe a love with acting?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, my uncle, as I said, he was an opera singer and was involved in a lot of plays that I would see. And yeah, I really got to delve into theater in high school, and then I went to college, and that's what I have like my degree in theater. Like,
oh wow.
But yeah, I think there's a real visceral power to theater, like getting to feel the audience's reaction to your performance or to what's going on in the play in the moment. I think as an actor, it's thrilling because you have to react in the moment. You have to really there's no cuts, right? So yeah, I think it's as an audience member and as a performer, it's a very special way to experience stories.
Wow, that's awesome. I there was something like earlier on, and I think my introduction was being involved in school in theater and just going to see different plays in Chicago and different things. Was that something the both of you were involved in school as well? Was taking on like theater classes at all?
Yeah, I was actually in a performing arts magnet at Van Nuys High over here, and I was actually a dance major, but went through the rotation of it all. So because of us being a performing arts school, we always, every weekend, were at the plays, at the musicals, at the dance shows, and it was just, and if you weren't performing in that show, you were doing something behind the scenes for it. It was just always involved. It was just a part of, I didn't even realize that wasn't how it should have been. It was just part of.
Okay. And that is something that was always fun too. You kind of touching on that was like being involved in plays or something was like, if you weren't going up and doing your part, you were kind of partaking and pulling the ropes in the back or, maybe shuffling around things and trying to get,
getting
the
the
whole overall,
ready, helping someone with
yeah.
Oh my
That's
God.
awesome. I love that. So now, as far as in film or even in television series, and this isn't to go into horror films per se, but three scenes from either of you, as far as that, just are forever ingrained in your brain. You mentioned Land Before Time, which is absolutely a moment in my life that broke me and I can never get over. But even outside of cartoons and a drama or something that maybe you saw that was disgusting, what are three scenes that come to mind that are just forever ingrained in your brain?
Well, 9.5 weeks, and I was 10 years old and probably should have been watching the movie. Have you seen this movie?
9.5 weeks?
Yeah.
I don't think so. No.
If anybody watching this has seen the movie, they know what I'm talking about. Yeah. It's just highly inappropriate to watch at that age. It's Kate was back. No, wait. Yeah.
9.5 weeks.
Yeah, Kate Bessinger. It's just a highly sexual film about this affair, and so I watched that. I remember that came to my mind, but also the scene in Pet Sematary when they sliced the ankle. That when I was a child, I saw that, and forever I didn't want to put my feet down. By the bed. I had to jump away from it and then walk.
God. Stephanie, what comes to mind?
I think of often the moment in Mulholland Drive when the woman appears from behind the dumpster.
Oh, yeah.
I remember like screaming when that happened, and it's just it's a very disturbing moment that sometimes replays in my mind. Uncanny too, like very
right.
What else? Jaws, when her that moment.
Right in the beginning.
Yes. And then I guess, is it her hand that's on the beach with like the crabs on it? I don't remember.
Oh, yeah.
Some body part that's on the beach after she gets chomped to bits.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's very Titanic when Jack goes, like he disappears from the let's go, and he's like.
Another memory came to me from early film was in Requiem for a Dream.
Oh,
the scenes where the grandmother is in front of the TV, like that static. That scene stays in my mind. Whenever I'm in my feel like that too, like that visual of the static on the TV. Yeah, I kind of.
Yeah.
Oh my.
Yeah.
And that movie, that's just one of those two, where after you experience it and somebody mentions like, oh, maybe we'll rent this, and it's a nice sunny day out, and you're just like, I don't want to drag this day down. Yeah. It's a really good to experience, and it was a good movie, but just the overall feel of it, it's very, like just a downer after you're done with it. You're like, oh God, I need to go and have a nice walk and maybe get some coffee or something.
Hug a person.
Yeah, right. Do a nice deed, pay it forward, yeah. So as far as, in film as well, something that I've always thought, is kind of funny is rational or irrational fears from something that we see in a movie. May it be something that's actually scary, or, you mentioned even, Melissa, as far as, the Achilles tendon being cut, and it's like, okay, there's never going to be somebody underneath my bed, especially a little kid who's been brought back from the dead, going to cut my ankle. But
you never know.
You never, yeah, you know what? I can't say never. You're true. That's true. Does anything come to mind as far as seeing something and just being ruined for the rest of your life after that?
I grew up in Hawaii, so Jaws ruined the ocean for me. It also ruined lakes. Like, I was so afraid of sharks.
Definitely scared.
Like, I was like, this is a freshwater lake in North Carolina. It's man-made, but there are sharks living in it.
I went so far as to be thinking that there's a shark or something in the bathtub.
Oh,
there's something that's gonna creep up from the pipes and come in and pull me down and kill me.
Oh my God. It wasn't up until doing these interviews, and it was funny because I had to show my wife this because I told her this story before. We had a neighbor behind us that had a pool, and I remember probably being maybe 7 or 8 years old, and I would have to have swimming goggles because I had to see under the water. And this was in a pool. I had to be able to see underneath even from the surface because there might have been a shark there. And experiencing that movie early on ruined water
Yeah.
forever and ever. So
Yes.
yeah, I can't imagine. As cool as I've always thought that the Disneyland ride would have been too, I always think about like, I don't know if I would have been able to do it. I don't think it experienced, or I don't think it's. Is that around anymore?
No, I think it's Universal.
Oh,
the Universal ride.
Was it Universal?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Oh,
Okay.
where the
Man.
shark comes
Yeah, the
out.
shark comes out. I think it's still
It's
there.
still there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the tram ride.
Oh, is it? Oh, well,
Yeah.
I don't know. We'll see. I'll still act like it's not around
Yeah.
anymore. I'm not tempted. So as far as your first acting experiences, what comes to mind? Maybe even earlier on, when you're dressing up for Halloween or something of the sort, and you're kind of taking on the character, or if it was something within theater. Tell us about those first times taking on acting and what went into. Were you excited? Was it kind of like a nerve-wracking experience?
Oh gosh, as a kid, I feel like acting for me has always been exhilarating. I'm a bit of an introvert, so it's allowed me to be more extroverted and perhaps behave in ways that I would never in my real life. And going back to like my first like acting roles as a kid, gosh, I loved dressing up as like really scary, or not, sometimes not scary, but like villains. I remember I made my mom as a kid make me an Elvira costume, the Mistress of the Darkness.
Yeah.
As a 5-year-old, it's like a little inappropriate. I was like, I relate to Elvira. And I remember as a kid on Halloween, I dressed up as the Grim Reaper. Oh, I remember the specific. It was 6th grade, and I had helped make a haunted house for my elementary school, and some kids were like knocking over some of the like stairs that we had in there. So they're like, Stephanie, you got to go into the haunted house and make sure people don't mess it up. So I went in my Grim Reaper costume, and instead of like schooling people, I would jump out and scare them as the Reaper, and this was just a delight for me.
Oh my God.
To get that.
Oh my God. Right. Even better than than going and telling them, hey, I put a lot of work into this. Just scare the shit out of them and get them out of there.
Yeah.
Well, you, Melissa.
I was also telling Stephanie before this, I would make little programs and then pass them out to the family and say, announcement, there's a show in the living room at 8 o'clock.
Oh
and then
my
I
God.
would do like the same little skits all the time. I love to act like Steve Urkel.
Oh,
that was my big one. And then I would love to, my dad plays a saxophone, and there's a piece that goes inside the saxophone to store it. I don't know what it's It's like furry and long. Anyway, I would use that as a cane, and I would act like an old lady. That was my first. And I'd say, oh, grandson, my back. Oh, and then that was like my skit that I did every night. I had to do the grandma skit. Those are my, and then of course the Jean-Claude Van Damme.
Oh, okay. Yeah, sure. Now, was the grandma, was that like based off of anything, or was that just more of like a practicality of
I
like
think
the costume?
Yeah, it wasn't based on any of my grandparents at the time were all very thriving, so I don't know why this was just a character that I felt like playing. I'm multi-ethnic, so at one time I would act like my old Japanese grandma, and then the next minute I would act like my German grandma. Like I would act like both and these different like accents.
Man, that's great.
Really living in it and really feeling like realizing what acting was at such a young age, because embodying that so fully and committing to it so fully, and then just the whole idea of like putting on this production, and even though it was in the living room, in my head it was transformed.
Yeah.
Yeah, and even even take like especially I think it's from seeing, having children, myself, and just little things like propping up the couch cushions and draping around a blanket, and it just creates this whole world, to where like as an adult you're kind of like, okay, I just got out of work and I'm a little over this, but then how important it is as far as for little ones, and just to kind of be able to maneuver different things, like how they're not supposed to be, and dress up, and maybe run around like you're not supposed to, and yelling, and it's so fun. I mean, I love that too. And just as far as that experience and kind of having that still special today, I think it always speaks, for anybody who has little ones, and sometimes the frustration that comes with that, and just let them have that time and have some fun.
And we're very lucky to get to like play that way, like to get to use our imagination and create, like continue to tap into that sense of we had as we obviously different.
Yeah.
We get to do that, which is such a really magical thing, in my opinion.
Well, because I think that that's a part of us as adults as we become that always feels like a child forever.
Yeah.
And so it is those moments where we get to step away from the world for a moment and create something that we get to tap back into that inner child.
Yeah, it's awesome. Now, I know, Stefanie, you had mentioned as far as doing like some schooling with acting in theater. Melissa, was there anything that you had taken on as far as like college or anything like that, or how how do you end up developing?
I had already been kind of in the industry auditioning and such from a younger age, and then I was like, my parents moved to Temecula, which is a few hours away from LA, so they dragged me out there, and I was kicking and screaming, and I just enrolled in the local community college there, but all I was doing was like the theater and the musicals, and then driving to LA every other day 3 hours in traffic for an audition. So it just kind of got to the point after I did a couple of years of the musicals and stuff and plays in college, I just came back to LA and didn't finish.
So from these experiences, how do you end up getting to your first, so to speak, work on film? How does that come about?
Wow. So it was after college, and I was auditioning mostly for theater, and I think I had a random audition for a feature film, and I was like, wow, whatever, I don't really care about that. I'm a theater actress, and I think I kind of took that attitude of like, whatever, I'm just here to like have it to like play, and like I don't really care.
You got the job.
Yeah, and I got the job.
No.
Remember? I don't know, I had a really good time shooting the film, and yeah, that sort of began the transition for me, at least, of like, oh, I'd always loved films, but like I don't know what I think it was because I went to a specific school that was focused on theater, and there was it was in New York, and there was a bit of a like, we don't do film, like we're theater actors. But I realized that I really loved it, and I think there's a difference in technique, there's a difference in process when you're approaching a film, and it's just as rich as what you do in the theater. And so I just really fell in love with it.
Did you find anything, from the experience being in theater and then transitioning into, being on a film that may have, prepped you or emphasized on your work, then working on a film that maybe you wouldn't have, not working in theater?
Well, I actually feel like I think I had to learn, I think it was a bit of the opposite. Like in theater, for me, like I think going from theater to film, I really had to, it took a while for me to understand that
you reel it in.
Yeah, you have to pull it back. Like we are not talking to a big house of people. It's like we're right here, and the camera sees everything. And like that was a hard lesson to learn, coming off of having to project emotions like to the back of the house, and then suddenly you're working in a medium where like the smallest little translates and says so much. I think the emotional work and the preparation are the same for both, and you're bringing the same heart, you're bringing the same soul to the performance, but it's how you're performing them that is so different. And for me, that was something that took some time to understand the craft of that. And I think I still am.
Okay.
Because I think there's,
sure.
For me, I'm like, I want to express these big emotions that I'm feeling. And with the camera, it's like, whoa.
When acting class joined, we were in acting class together like years ago.
Awesome. And now, is that kind of, is that familiar as well, Melissa, as far as your transition into your first work on film?
I think so. The first thing I ever put on film that was outside of like a commercial was a short film, like a short student film. And it was after I watched it, I realized, I was like, thank God this is my first thing on film, and hopefully nobody will really even see, because you do have to look and realize, wow, it's so subtle. You have to pull it back. There's no room for the big. You have to everything. Like the camera picks up everything, every little eye lift, every little smirk, and so realizing that you have to really reel it in, ground yourself. And then the other thing is like really forgetting that the cameras are there.
Yeah.
There's so much going on. When you're doing a live production or a play or something, the audience you can hardly see because the lighting is just all towards you, and the people behind the scenes that are the crew, they're not in your face either. So you get to really just be in the moment, but you have to learn to tune out everything happening production-wise on a film. There's somebody holding the boom right here, and then there's somebody back there. And I tell you, there was one time I had to do like a really challenging scene, and just like a random crew member was sitting there chewing an apple. And I was like, it was so hard to just tune that out, but you have to like learn to just be able to.
Yeah.
and like at no point somebody doesn't mention like, that was probably not the time, my man.
It's one of those things where you're just like, and I want to stay in the moment, so you don't want to take the time to break that and say something, but it's So it's like those little tiny things that you don't think about that could be challenging.
I mean, and so even, touching on that and kind of going into within Soft and Quiet, and I know, the whole blocking, and, we'll kind of touch on, other aspects of this, but was that something as well, as far as having, you have camera operators and boom, was this all that was just like a big mass, movement throughout the blocking of this?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was.
Shit.
It was, incredibly choreographed. Everything was like, what was so amazing, I feel like, about Soft and Quiet was that it was so meticulously planned in terms of like, we have to move here. We have to make sure that our DP is like, we help her out of the car. But within that specificity, we as actors had to be ready to be spontaneous because we weren't cutting. We had to be ready to change on a dime
if there's anything that got close at all to doing a play, but as a film, this was it.
Yeah.
And everybody did such a good job at staying out of our way too.
Yes.
So I didn't even realize that there was a crew there at points. Because they did their job and they really stayed out of it. And it was very, very, very tight. There was not a lot of people. It wasn't, everybody was very well trained. Greta, who was the DP, she trained for 6 months for this film. Steps with like the camera pack that she built, so that she could be able to be very mobile. She was a very tiny girl, and she had this huge camera pack, and she just, she learned how to maneuver, and so that she could, move with what was going on, because it was choreographed to a very well
Yeah.
choreographed, but then there was an element of
Spontaneity, right? Like, you don't know what's going to happen. You don't. Like,
Sheesh.
yeah.
And mentioning too, within Greta and her work, I had reached out to her as well, and we'll be having her on in the coming months, just as far as her experience. And you mentioning, taking on 6 months of training, just for one project. I mean, that's a lot of commitment, as well as you're mentioning doing push-ups and all of the choreography that are going into this. It's wild. Wow.
Yeah, it wouldn't have happened and able to happen if everybody wasn't totally on their A game.
Yeah, 100%.
Now, as far as within the crew, but then also in the casting, was there a lot of theatrical experience? Was that kind of like a thing going into this, as far as when there was casting and Beth was, introducing the material to everybody involved?
Oh, I don't know.
You mean theater as in theatrical?
Yeah, right.
That's a good question.
As far as for the cast, like Eleanor, she is a dancer.
Mm-hmm.
But actually, I think that a lot of us are predominantly TV and film.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay. Jeesh. Yeah. Especially with with the dynamic, and you mentioning, all that goes into it and all the moving parts that, continually are moving. It makes it even more impressive. Jeez, that's insane. So how do the both of you, as far as your personal experience, get introduced to this material, and at what point in your personal readings do you realize that things are going to go badly?
Beth sent me the script a couple months before shooting, and well, the first thing I'll say is that we had talked about doing this project together. So when she sent me the script, she had written Emily, the character that I play, as Stefanie, which was incredibly hard to read.
Yeah, right.
Your name and doing these terrible things. So as I read it, I think I've said this before, like every page turn, it was like, oh my God, okay, it's getting worse. And I think when it really, for me, when I was like, oh my God, please, was this scene in the liquor store when Anne comes in and that confrontation happens. I was like, this is going to be really bad. Like, it was really bad, but so I feel like for me, reading that scene was and watching it, it's like we had to do a bit of ADR for the project, and I hadn't seen any of it prior to doing the ADR session, and there were a couple of instances in the liquor store scene that I had to do ADR for, and so I watched a bit of it, and I started crying during the session because I was like, this, please stop, just make it stop. It doesn't have to go to where I know it's going. It can end here, and for me, that scene has always been just very fraught. And
that scene changes the whole texture of the film at that point. Up until then, people are watching, they're like, this is just a bunch of, what's going on here? And it's that scene that kind of changes the tone. It grounds it as well, because it brings in this other energy between me and Lily coming in and breaking up whatever dialogue they've been spewing.
Yep.
Now, as far as your prep that goes into this, you have now, Stefanie, you mentioned initially reading the script and it has your name in it. How, with the jarring concept of everything that we have here, what are some things, maybe even articles or things that you read, as far as just being able to prep for a role like this for the both of you?
I spent a lot of time talking to Beth about how she saw this character, because Emily is not the protagonist of the story. She is not the hero, but she is the vessel for which we're experiencing this. And so for me, it was really important to understand where Beth saw her going, because she was the means with which we're getting to experience this story. So I talked with Beth, and Beth had some specific ideas of people that exist in the world that I'm not going to name, like that she saw parts of this character living in. So I went down some dark places on the internet and on YouTube. And then I think as an actor, it's doing a lot of character work. And for me, trying to find the aspects of this deplorable person that I can connect to. And I say that with an asterisk because I do not connect to her. But for instance, I really focused on her struggle to have a baby. That was a way that I felt that I could relate to Emily. So focusing on those things, and then getting very specific about who Beth saw this character as, and then doing it.
Yeah. So, I mean, in a complete, juxtaposition, kind of transition, how does that go for you, Melissa? What, after initially reading this and your prep as far as bringing this character?
So I had worked with Beth prior on a short film that she did called Initiation, and it was shot in the exact same style, straight through, one take. And
Oh, wow.
And maybe 5 or 6 years had passed since then. And I had done plenty of projects between then. People would ask me what was my favorite thing to do, and it was that short film with her because of how we shot it. So when Beth called me, I hadn't heard from her in a while, and this was right during 2020. Everything was shut down. I knew if she was calling, it was going to be something really interesting. And she basically opened up with, so I'm doing another film, and it's going to be shot the same way as Initiation. And I was already like sold, I didn't even know what it was about yet. And then she sent me the script. I sat there for quite a while. I didn't cry, but I was just very stunned and emotional, but keeping it kind of locked down. Because I knew that I was going to have to do this now. I hadn't been talked to yet, but I just knew this is something I'm about to do. And then it dawned on me that I have to get in the water and the whole Jaws thing.
Right, going full circle.
Oh, no.
And I wrote Beth back, and I was kind of like, well, I can play Lily, the other role. Like, I wanted to get out of needing to be in the water. I was like, whatever, I'd love to be involved, whichever role you want me in. So she's like, well, it has to be Anne. I'm like, oh.
God. Oh my God.
Because it's, you get excited and exhilarated, but also terrified at the same time. Like, if I'm going to commit to this, it means I'm really going to have to do everything that is involved in these scenes. And so, you get excited to be able to work on something, and then you're like, oh shit, but I have to actually do it now.
Sure.
And in the way that we shot, Sissy and I don't know from their perspective, but in the way that we shot, it was so real. So there is a sense of PTSD that I think lives with us forever. Even, when we would watch back the film, there's not a single time that I've watched it that I didn't completely cry and break down, because it was so real. And it was almost as watching something that really happened to me. So, yeah, I know I went on a little bit of a, diverted a bit from your question. But
No.
That's, and to be honest, I didn't do any prep. I didn't have to. This is my life.
Sure.
So, I knew that I had to just show up and know my lines. And then everything else beyond that, I had to just allow, in a way. Because, there's some roles, if it's a very wordy project, you have to be very, very prepared. This character and all of it is not that far removed from life experiences that I've had. And also just being an older sister. I have a little sister, and I have had to march up to schools and defend her. So it was just a very easy yes. It was just like, this is it. I have this already stored in me. There's nothing much I have to dig deeply here for. It's already here. So.
Well, and I think there was something too. It was an interview with Beth that she was mentioning as far as, did she have a hard time casting, these characters? And she was like, no, you have people that are confident in their work and that aren't shitty people and aren't feeding into being these characters that are stepping up. That makes everything a much more comfortable experience. As much so as you can say, the term comfortable, obviously, just as far as trying to portray this tragic, hurtful story. And
she did create a space. She's wonderful in that, in creating a safe space for us to have to feel like we could go to those places because we had to, and it was awful and uncomfortable. But
that same week, we started shooting just a few days after the shootings in Atlanta.
Oh God.
So this was very fresh, and this was right when all of the, a lot of the Asian hate crime was being forced to us through the media and brought to light. So it was like a very open wound at the time. So everybody was very aware of what just had happened. John Beavers, he came in, he was very nurturing and because I know that there was a lot of physicality with him towards Sissy and I, and he always made sure that we felt comfortable. Beth would always come in and check in and I don't, Beth, it's okay, we're fine. That's how I felt. It's like, I'm fine. You don't have to worry. I'm here. We signed up for this. Everybody here is amazing. So we really had each other's back. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah. And there's. Oh, no, go ahead. Sorry.
I think that's what made it so effective, because we were comfortable in a very uncomfortable situation. We knew that at any moment we could look somebody in the eye and know that we were on the same page, that we were at the end of the day okay. So.
Yeah. And not even having the opportunity of it being cut scenes to where you can get through a difficult, situation, and everybody can hug it out for a second and be like, okay, let's refresh. Then it's like, oh, okay, we still have 30 more minutes to go until I can escape this from it.
You want to share it? No, we did have that moment at the end of every night. I had to get out of the water, and I was always the last one done because of the final scene. And the lifeguard would be pulling me on a boogie board through the shark-infested water, by the way, where we shot. There were sharks. And
okay, where was this?
Oh, we can't.
Okay. Never mind.
Yeah.
Okay. Yep. Not a problem.
It's north.
Okay. Not a problem.
So he would pull me on a boogie board, and I was just caught horrible, because that was the only part of the movie that I would do multiple times, come in and out of the water at the end of it, and everybody would be on the shore clapping, and then I'd come out and they'd have a warm towel and we would all hug and we would all laugh.
Because we were in it together.
And nobody, usually when people are done, unwrapped, they leave, they go back to their room. Everybody stayed on that beach waiting for me. And that was just a testament to the commitment that we all had in making sure we nurtured our relationship.
Man. And that's it's beautiful, as far as hearing that and, almost feeling like a team where you have the first person that ends up crossing that line and the last person that everybody is waiting, to make that complete goal. So I appreciate that. That's awesome. Was that an intended thing, or was that just through everybody being like, God damn it, we have to make this through?
They knew I was having a really hard time with that too. And so I think that it was just part of how lovely
we were a family,
Mm-hmm.
and like we knew that was not only a hard emotional moment, but like a hard physical. And
Sure.
I'm terrified of water. I'm terrified of going into water. You're gonna make me
Oh
go
my
into
God.
the water
at night too.
At night?
where were actual sharks. So the
Dude.
lifeguard that was always with me next to me, and I said, "Oh, I think I just saw a shark," and he was like, "No, no, no," and he goes, "Oh yeah, that's definitely a shark because this is their breeding ground," and blah blah blah. I'm like,
Oh man.
what?
Get me out of here. Yeah, wow, that is insane. So as far as with the film, being filmed in real time, just out of myself being a viewer and not knowing, the whole thing was shot in one take, correct? There wasn't like mini edits or there wasn't anything. It's insane.
I think we shot it 4 times over 4 nights. We never cut
Okay.
during filming. We would start at like 5:58 p.m. and we would yell cut
Whenever sunset was
happening, and we would yell cut like an hour and a half after. I think with the edit, there are some bits of day 3 and day 4 that I don't know where they are, but
I think she said it's predominantly day 4 with a little bit of day 3
in the cabin, maybe.
But don't quote us on that.
Yeah, but in terms of the actual shooting of it, we did not cut. Mm-hmm.
Jeez. Okay. So and within once again, just kind of even touching on like the blocking and everything. So this was from how big of a crew was this as far as from did it shorten or did it change throughout that first take through the very ending of the film as far as everybody that was on filming and shooting?
I feel like it was about 10 people total.
Yeah, crew
around.
Yeah.
And yeah, everybody had something to do at all times. Mm-hmm. So everybody was there from start to finish.
Jeez.
I don't know. I know that they pre-lit everything. So like Greta and Beth and their team pre-lit everything. I know in terms of sound, we were all logged. We had a boom mic following us the whole time. And they had mics planted throughout the set. I don't know. It's hard to remember specifically because I know tons were happening because people were pulling in props or were helping, like get you into a wetsuit.
Yeah, Tom was doing props.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know that there was. We were in a car. Like we're in a car for part of it, and I know Beth and some of the camera crew, like the AD and the AC, were in a car.
Another car
that would follow us. And it couldn't get too far away from us or they would lose signal with the camera and the monitor. Yeah. So it really was like I don't like so many moving pieces.
Yeah, looking back now, I'm like, how the heck?
Yeah, how did we do that?
So it was over 4 days, and then it was primarily day 4 and then possibly bits of day 3 that were intermingled as far as what was used for the film.
Yeah, we rehearsed for 3 days and then we shot for 4.
Oh, okay, got it. So the 3 days were over like a blocking as far as like timing out and spacing. I know at one point there was mentioned maybe even within like 10 or 15 seconds that you guys had every time of the practice that it was within themselves. Is that true?
Yeah, it was pretty we had to after the first day of shooting though, we did cut some stuff.
Yeah, like the church scene felt a bit long. It wasn't moving at a pace. Yeah, we had to start because Beth and Greta wanted last light, when the very last bits of the sun are disappearing, to happen when we're at the cabin, like when they decide to like basically torture these women, like when they're outside sort of gathering themselves. That's when last light was supposed to happen. So
we had the time to get there at that exact moment.
To get there at that moment, like let's say there's 40 minutes up until last light. So we had to start, and I think every day they pushed it by like 2 or 3 minutes because the days are getting longer.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah, so it was very specific.
Yeah.
The second night was, I mean, the first night that we did it, it was like, oh my God.
We just did
We
it.
did
We
it.
got it. Oh my
We did
God.
it.
Like, I didn't think we were going to be able to get through that, but we did.
Yeah.
Became more confident
Yeah.
by day 4.
The second night was a disaster.
Complete disaster.
It was like everything that you could imagine.
Because another part of it is the tide. So with the boat going out into the water, if the tide wasn't high enough, the boat was like, forget it.
Like stuck in mud.
So here's these girls. She's got high heels on, and they're really in the mud trying to get the boat out to the ocean. And it was just, there was one night where it was like,
it's not going.
It's not going.
Like
because
that,
the tide was too low.
Like that day, that take started with me like trying to open the pregnancy test, and I couldn't get it open, and it was like just me like, oh God,
yeah. So it's like every second matters.
Jeez.
Yeah.
That's insane. So within that work, as well as, you know, we touched on Greta, the cinematography in this, and just the different shots and the different angles and ways that these are, what was maybe a shining moment as far as seeing how this could have been a very POV feel, maybe, you know, like a found footage type movie, you know, but this still felt very cinematic as far as how it was shot and delivered.
For me, I think a lot of, like, I don't know, it all feels very cinematic to me. I think there's a spot at the end where I get to the lake and you see my silhouette and my headlamp, and you see like the lake in front of me. I don't know, that stands out to me as a very cinematic moment.
Is that what you, was that?
Yeah. Yep.
I think a lot of the, I don't know. I think
when when at the very end, when the perspective changes from that into me coming out of the water, that changes it being definitely changes it being more of a like found footage.
Yeah.
Vibe.
Yeah,
then it shifts.
Yeah, I think I'm trying to think about it. It's just all very even. There is a fluidity to the movie, right? Because it's happening in real time. We're not cutting. Like Greta and Beth were so good at staging people. Like when in our confrontation in the liquor store, the way the camera looks at me, I seem huge, looming. I'm like, and just the way that plays out is very cinematic, in my opinion.
Yeah.
It helps to tell the story of how she's feeling, you know.
I think that it sets up for potentially being a found footage in the future, the cabin scene where she pulls out the phone and starts filming us. So it did bring in that element where the camera could see the point of view from the phone.
For the phone. God. And you mentioned it too in like the liquor store. That was one, you know, moment where I remember kind of rewinding back, because being in that moment and having everybody's individual style, you know, versus being, you know, a film where it might be close-up takes and you're kind of forced to see, you know, the reaction from different people. Going back and seeing, you know, Anne and then the little sister, and then seeing off to the right you have the two that are by the register, and then, you know, coming back and then it's like the close-up of you, you know, like, what did you just say? And it's like, oh God, this is very, very, very intense as far as even, you know, like those moments too. So
that
great work.
Is how Beth and Greta, like, that's all planned. And I think in terms of when you talk about the cinematic nature of the film, like that, they're just so smart in having created that feeling. Like it was obviously our performances and the characters, but like how they set the world up and how they maneuver the camera and the shots to give you that feeling as a viewer.
Sure, absolutely. One, you know, other aspect I wanted to touch on, you know, a little bit outside of story and whatnot, but you have the difficulty of shooting in a single take, the real time feel to it, but then it also interweaves within exteriors, interiors, into vehicles. What can you tell us about, maybe some of like location, not where this is, I don't mean by like by that, but production design wise, as far as did you ladies get to see maybe the church, or maybe the cabin, and how it transformed into what we ended up seeing for the film?
Well, I know that Beth cleared the locations before she wrote the script. She knew that she wanted these specific locations, and they're all, I don't know, like the school is within walking distance of the church.
You couldn't have found a better place to shoot.
Yeah.
Oh, dang.
I think it's so incredible that she found all of these locations all within walking distance from each other so that we could shoot in this way.
Yeah.
It's just wild.
And I think, and in terms of, so we got to experience the locations when we were rehearsing, and they each, like, that was so smart in terms of choosing them. They already had their own character. Like the church has its character. The liquor store, like, that's just how it is. Like that's how it is. But Tom, our production designer, I feel like he heightened those elements that were already there. Like when we finally shot it, we got to the church scene, and he did this like grotesquely pink setup of like the cookies and like the little napkins and the little and so he really, I think he took things that were already like kind of living and breathing environments that really worked for the story that we were telling, and like heightened them in with his work.
Man.
And made them feel so real. Like the cabin. Ooh.
Yeah.
And that was the genuine feel of it, too. That was kind of where, like my interest was seeing this and seeing the different spots. It's like, man, these places all feel, and I guess that's, part of a production designer's job, right, is to make it feel like that. But they really felt like they had kind of had their time, and then it wasn't, much that had to be like touched or messed with.
Yeah. Definitely. Like the liquor store.
Oh, yeah.
That's just as it was. That's the liquor.
Jeez.
So it really was like casting the film, cast the locations as characters, as part of, a living part of the.
Yeah. And I think he was very smart to do that.
Yeah. Wow. Now, something that I often ask, and maybe this film is a little bit different as far as the relationship, beyond, but did either of you end up keeping anything from the project, or was this something where it's like, we'll just leave that there?
Yeah.
I have my.
Oh, I do have parts.
I have my whole wardrobe.
Oh, you do?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, dang. Wow.
I think I still have the shoes that I wore in the movie. So they like clop in a really funny way, like little cloppers. And I think I have the coat, but it's like deep in a closet. I don't pull it out. I don't know.
Mine's deep in a closet. Actually, my boyfriend he's like, what is this? I said, oh, that's what I wore in there. Well, we should hang it up or something. I said, no, just keep it.
I will.
Oh God.
That as part of the prep for the movie and some of like the character work that I did. And in the start of the film, my character has a children's book that she's having this little kid read. So Beth had me actually write and illustrate like a rough draft of one. And it's pretty icky. No, I'm actually terrified that I left it in the hotel room that I was staying in.
Oh my God.
Look, we cannot tell you where we shot, but I will say this. On part of the drive from one location to another, there was a home with a big "Don't Tread on Me" flag in front of it.
Oh, boy.
So, like I said, the whole area was a character, was a part of it.
Oh, God. So, all right.
Yeah.
Just all of a sudden, things that I'm not going to ask, to be put out there. Jesus, there's, and the thing is with movies like this, whether it's younger or an older audience, it's one of those things that it's so, it's uncomfortable and it's hard to watch and it's hard to get into, but it's another aspect where telling friends to watch it just out of, hey, don't let this ever be
Yeah.
you. Don't let, people that are around that maybe are starting these conversations or making little statements like this where it's like, well, why don't you like that person? What is the issue? I've always been lucky enough as far as in my upbringing to have all sorts of different cultures and people from different countries and friends that, I've been able to flourish with, to this day, to where it's never connected with me and it's never been anything, directly involved. But to say it's beautiful, and I appreciate the work that both of you put into this, but then also I don't know if I anticipate watching it a whole lot more. It's certainly it's something to be appreciated though, and I have told a lot of people with it, it's in its own right of being a horror movie, as opposed to thinking of a slasher,
Yeah.
anything of those likes. It's terrifying, and it's certainly hard to sit through. And I had to say I appreciate both of your times today talking about this, and the experience that both of you went through. And I hope to see you in more maybe enlightening roles after this. Do you have anything rolling after, anything that you're working on currently? I know just from following both of you, you have different things personally that you flourish in, but anything film wise that's coming up here soon?
Not film wise. I have a small part in a TV show that's coming out soon. It's an Amazon show called The Consultant, but I'm in and out.
Awesome.
Like
Yeah. I got pregnant.
Yeah.
Shot, so I've
Okay.
I've been focusing on that.
Oh
My
man.
toes, dipped in all of it again. So we'll see
Shit.
what comes. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, once again, thank you so much for taking the time today. This has been absolutely awesome. And for anybody who hasn't seen the movie, it's kind of a warning and kind of a trigger, but it's certainly something to see. So thank you once again for the time you guys have taken today.
Thank you so much.
Okay. Yep. Take care. Have a good day.
So lo-fi, lo-fi, a horror guy, yeah. Lo-fi horror guy has been recorded in front of a live studio audience.